Good morning. I hope everyone's good. Sorry, I was just updating my stop losses to make sure that I'm break even before I start doing this. Oh yeah, I hope everyone's good. Yesterday was an odd day. Not odd. I personally just traded a bit like an idiot. In full transparency, I dropped 1.5% yesterday. Doing nothing but being thick, and impatient. So it comes and goes. A prime example is Aussie New Zealand. I tried to take a short position at the lows when I knew that the pullback to 170 was the most likely scenario. So then I've had to take another position at 170. I had written the analysis out. I had planned the trade. I had sent it out as a newsletter to everyone and put it in the public, and I still refused to trade the plan that I put in place. So yeah, whether it's ego, whatever it is, something got the better of me, and I rushed into some positions that I shouldn't have been rushing into, and took others that I shouldn't have taken. But it is what it is. We shall see how things progress. I'm in dollar CAD. I tried to rush dollar CAD yesterday. I knew that a pullback to kind of 28. I was expecting 28.30 was a possibility. We even spoke about it. Again, just didn't take my own advice. I did take Euro Yen short, and I'm currently involved a couple of pips up in the long back up today. Again, we did highlight 126.50 in the newsletter, and yesterday as a potential area to bounce from, and that pullback definitely needed to happen into that zone. That has happened. We've now bounced rejected out of it. So we'll look for that push to the upside. If we drop below 50, then I will, one, be stopped out, but two, will probably flip to the short and look for the short continuation. I'm also just waiting for the highs to be taken back out here at 2090 before I look to take a potential Euro USD long as well. So there's a few things to run through this morning. Jeez. Apologies for that. There's a few things to run through that we need to look at. Yesterday, and certainly in the newsletter that we sent out to those that are subscribed to it on Sunday night, we highlighted 121.20 as a key area, as a potential area on Euro USD. We popped back below that, back down to the 50 level, which is again exactly what we had planned. Again, a trade that for some reason I just didn't take. I hope some people did, because there was probably the easiest 70 pips there. It was such a clear level. You can see on the 30-minute time frame, clear as day, how much of a support region this had been. So it made perfect sense that when we broke through that, we were going to get a sharp drop. Look at the consolidation between 121.70 and 121.20. You're talking 20 days? Nearly 21 days worth of consolidation. So the pop out of that was always going to be sharp. It was always going to be a big move, impulsive move, which is exactly what we saw. We just didn't, for whatever reason, take, or I personally, for whatever reason, didn't take that position. Not one to really dwell on the past. So we'll just move on from that, and we will look into the next opportunity. So the next opportunity that is going to present itself, or is presenting itself to us with Euro USD, it's either that long above the highs. If we take a look, obviously we've had a higher low form. That lower low there, higher high, higher low. So if a higher high comes into play, we'll look for the pullback into the 70 region and previous lows, but you can also see through here where we've used that area as support before. So that would make perfect sense to see said pullback into that region. We can tell that that was last used on a black chart. And then obviously take the long back to 21.20, above 21.20, the potential push up. There is, however, Euro data this morning. What do we have this morning? I think there's CPI or GDP data. Pretty sure there's GDP data for the Euro out this morning. So that I am a little bit mindful of. The fact that that is there and will be there. It does tend to scare me a little bit, especially given the current economic climate. So we shall wait and see what happens. But a break back above the highs, a push into 70, I would like to take from 70 up to 20. Give ourselves that 50 pips. Then obviously if we can break above 21 and go higher, then happy days, everyone's a winner. That's exactly what we would like to see. If obviously that doesn't happen, and I'm 100% certain that a pullback into 21.20 is going to happen at some point. Not sure how quickly, but it will occur. I'm pretty confident of it. So when that does occur, when that does happen, then obviously what we will look to do is either take the long above or look for rejection and that possible push to the downside. If we come into the 4 hours, obviously what we are seeing is the fact that we have created that lower low. So this little swing situation that we're seeing forming, 121.20 coming back to that area would be the perfect place to see a new swing high form. So therefore, obviously, we need to be very mindful of that 21.20 level as a potential area to reject from. So from here to 21.20 looks pretty odds on. Pretty content with that being a potential. It's just what we do from there that is going to make a difference to us later on. Moving into Euro Yen, as I said before, we've created this series on the lower time frames, which isn't an ideal scenario. However, it was a necessity given the push that we had seen on the 4 hour time frame. Coming back into this region and testing these previous highs was 100% going to happen. It was a necessity. It needed to happen before we saw price continue any kind of upwards trajectory. If we come down into the daily though, what we are seeing and what we can see is the fact that we're starting to get to a situation where unless we break above 27, then we have to be considering the fact that downside is probably the more likely scenario. I am long in it at the moment just because my trade plan dictated that I should be. And price action kind of dictated that I should be. But below 26.50, attention will turn to short positions. Treating it as a potential breakout, we'll come back down then into 25.50, 25.70, somewhere around the previous lows where we'll be looking to target. So it's not huge in regards to risk to reward potentials, but it's still a solid position. And given price action, if we were to break, then I'm pretty sure that that would be a likely area to come back down to. Now, I don't write off and discount the long side of it completely. As I say, the daily's not providing us with loads to work with, especially considering there's the consolidation that we saw all the way through December. So we're not getting loads and loads to work with, but we are kind of seeing the potential that if we were to drop it back, then we could definitely pop back down to 25.50. So we shall see what happens. Not too massively interested in the lower time frame price action right up until the point where either we break above 27 or 25.50 for the time being. I'll let my position do its thing. However, for potential planned entries for today, I think given the fact that you'd need a 30 pip stop loss to a 30 pip target. There's no point taking any long positions up to 27 anymore. And likewise, being the short positions from here, again, you'd need a stop loss. You'd probably get away with a 20 pip stop loss, to be fair, but you're looking for a 25 pip gain down to 50. So it's no man's land at the moment. For all the time that we're between these two zones, there's no real trade to take anymore. The potential entry for the long was here. I wouldn't want to be involved in any other position at the moment, just from a risk to reward point of view. Mostly I'm in this because target wise, back up at 129.30, so 129 is my target, but target wise, oh, I hate it when it does this. But you can see that once we're above this region, above these previous highs, then the previous support resistance region, that key level through at 129.30 is 100% the next port of call for it. So we're either going to see that pop above or that pop below. Either way, we have potentials. We just need to be a little bit patient with it. Unless you're already involved from the 50 region or thereabouts. Dollar CAD. I got caught on this yesterday. I got caught about 3 times on it. I say caught, I just kept closing because it became clear that the short wasn't ready and it wasn't going to come into play. So it wasn't that I ever really got caught on it. Like, I think I hit stop loss on it once, the first time I took it. But every time after that, I just kept closing for like 5 pips, 10 pips, just because it became very apparent that I wasn't going to get the move that I so desired. I set a pending order at 28.10 this morning. Could have taken it a little bit earlier. I was looking at it at around 28.30, but I decided that waiting out was probably the best port of call. Which I firmly kind of stand by as things look. If we come to the 4 hours, we can see that we saw that swing. What we would like to do now is obviously pop back below the lows at 127.80, somewhere around that region, to see that push back into the low, to see us firmly get back on that low trajectory, that short bias that we were holding from last week's close. You can see we're starting to get the rejection now, starting to see the potential signs. I would like to be able to hold this. If I can hold this for the desired length of time, I'm in a desired position, and like I say, it is a huge risk to reward down to that potential area at 120, at 124.50. We have current price out. I do have a bigger stop loss this time around. I've got a 40 pip stop loss, so we shall just see how price responds. The pullback's always going to happen. You can't see a momentum push down like that without seeing an almost immediate pullback. So absolutely fine with that occurring. We see price stall a little bit. I imagine we'll pull back to 28.10. Like I say, I am risk-free in it at the moment. My stop loss is at break even. I will look to move that if I'm still involved after this stream finishes. If not, then I've been stopped out. It makes no difference. I'll just look to take the position again. But yeah, as far as downside movement goes, still relatively content. We've not failed. We've not broken back above the previous highs at 29 or 28.80, so around that 28.80, 29 level. We've not broken above. So I'm relatively content on the fact that the downside is probably still the more likely scenario. However, these lows at 80, 27.80 do need to go. That would be my preferred entry. There was just an opportunity I saw this morning to get in a little bit earlier. But below 27.80, which is the level obviously that we have alerted here, but most importantly is previous support, previous resistance region. It's a very key level. Once that does go, we will see a pretty sharp drop into 126, I'm sure. And then from there, we'll see where we go. Obviously, there's a little bit of positivity surrounding the US dollar at the moment, just in the sense of the fact that they are pushing for that data is going to be pretty positive, and obviously the stimulus checks that are coming out and to kickstart the economy. So there's a lot of positivity swirling around. However, obviously with a lot of that, there becomes a lot of risk. So the markets are certainly far from settled on where things are going to go and what things might potentially do. So it does bode that if you're not already in the position from any of the given levels, then to wait it out and just to see if we can get below this 80 region. I'm sure it will happen at some point this morning. Aussie CAD. We saw a big Aussie push up yesterday, which was admittedly a little bit unexpected. Didn't quite envision it going as high as it did. With that said, though, it's just one of those things. We've waited. There was the potential, obviously, to take the short, but that was at like 3 o'clock this morning, 3:30. That was around fundamentals. Therefore, it would have been extremely foolish to try and hold it into something as big as monetary policy and interest rate decisions. Obviously, that's not gone very well for the Australian dollar this morning. We've seen that push to the downside. So all we can do there is await a potential entry as things progress. But as things are standing at the moment, we're getting that push away from 97.70, which is what we wanted to see yesterday. So if we can continue with that price action, then there's certainly an opportunity to look to take a position from here. I'm just a little bit mindful of the drop that we have seen and how sharp it's been. The fact that there might want to be seen a little pullback into that area before price moves any further to the downside. However, obviously, once we're below here, we've already targeted at 196.20, back down at previous lows. I'm fairly confident in the fact that by the end of the week, price will be trading around that area, around that situation. So we just need to wait, just need to hold it out a little bit, hold our nerve, and like I say, potentially look to take that position. I'll probably look to get involved around about 97.50. And then from 97.50 down to 69.20, 96.20. I'll get there in the end. At which point, obviously, we'll either see and anticipate that bounce back to the upside or the breakthrough and continuing our short bias. So we shall wait and see what happens there. Aussie New Zealand, as I said earlier, was always looking for that pullback. It just, for some bizarre reason, believed that it probably wouldn't come into play. It has done now, and obviously we've now seen the break back below 06.20. So there were two opportunities there to get involved in potential positions. I do still firmly like the fact that we're dropped through this. For those that are still holding both positions, then fantastic. You're well in profit at the moment. For those that aren't, or for whatever reason, then like I say, you are looking at the potential now for being quite high up. I don't know why that's saying that's stopped that. Let's just pop that back above because I don't want it to say that. So for everyone that's still involved in last week's position and are now currently riding this one down, I'm pretty certain at this point in time That 105 is a given. We might see price pop back up to 106.20 at some point, but it's, in all honesty, a little bit doubtful. I'm fairly confident now in the fact that we just see price push to the downside, and that should, in theory, be that. But you never know. Stranger things have happened, certainly in this world. So we shall have to await and see. Just having a look. Pound New Zealand also dropped, didn't it? So uh, 60. So yeah, it's one of those situations that we just have to wait and see now what happens. But we've got a decent risk to reward in it, which is obviously all that we are looking for at this point in time. Pound CAD, I am looking for the break back below 75.20. This is an oldly marked up chart, you can tell. This is one of my macro charts. Let me just get rid of these two levels because they're not relevant to us. What is completely relevant to us is the area that we have bounced from previously and we are currently bouncing from, and the fact that we are now trading around a large area of previous resistance. So we shall see what happens. A pop back below there, and I'm fairly confident that 74, if not 73, is on the cards for pound CAD. Would play quite nicely in with a dollar CAD situation if that was to occur, which would be quite a pleasant situation for us to find ourselves in. So we shall see what happens. Monitoring this quite carefully. Alongside that, pound New Zealand below 90.40, that back down to the 90 whole number that we were talking about last week. Looks like a possibility also, and looks highly probable at this point in time. For that to look set to continue. And then lastly, New Zealand yen. New Zealand yen, obviously, we discussed yesterday morning that we're trapped inside this range situation. And it's that range situation that we would quite like to get out of. The break back above 75.60, that kind of area is what we are looking for currently and what we're waiting for. But we've seen that retest come back and seen the retest of the previous resistance level. If we just very quickly pop that through. Came back in, retested these previous highs. You can even pull that across, see those previous lows. A perfect area to retest. Again, I wasn't interested in taking that position. I watched it unfold last night, but wasn't overly interested in taking a position. We'll see how things progress, see if we pop back up. But again, ties quite nicely in with the potential euro long that we are looking into. But again, we just need to wait and see. It is very much like a range trade situation at the moment. So we can't rush the situation. We can't move too quickly on it. We need to be patient and wait for 75.60 to be taken out. Then obviously we can look at where we go from there. We did discuss gold short yesterday, given the nasty spikes that we had seen early in the morning, just before we had started yesterday's stream. That is currently running about 130 pips in profit. I don't anticipate that this will continue. I'm anticipating that we're probably quite likely to see a long form at some point. Whether or not we push down into 1835, 1840, I don't really know. I'm doubtful at this point in time. I do kind of think we're going to bounce from where we are. If you're in it, I would probably just take my profit I do think a push further into the upside now is probably due back into 1875. If 1875 goes, then you have a lovely climb up to 1906. So yeah, there's a few things to keep an eye on and a few things to be mindful of this morning. Obviously, dollar CAD below 27.80 is a big one. Euro USD, if we can pop up to 121, I think everyone should have that level alerted. Euro yen above 127 or below 126.50. Aussie CAD is looking good at the moment. We are seeing that retest, that break. Probably look to take a short below 97.50. If that comes into play, then fairly confident that will go our way also. New Zealand, Aussie New Zealand, like I say, already short in that, seeing the pullback that has occurred. An entry around 106 would make a lot of sense if you're not already in it. That entry from 106 down to 105.50, you'll get a relatively tight stop loss, considering we've just seen a new swing form. So probably a 20 pip stop loss. So not a bad 5 to 1 to see the day start. New Zealand dollar above 75.60. Pound New Zealand below 40 down to the whole number. I would then believe if we break back below 90.40, then the whole number won't hold, and we will very quickly see 89.20. So that will be a nice position to start the day with. And also pound CAD, we're seeing that pullback and retest. I'm probably likely to see this retrace back to 75.40. But from 75, basically when we break back below 75.20, certainly be looking to take a short position back down to 74 or 73, depending on how price progresses, somewhere into these regions that we can see through here. So we shall wait and see. Probably actually a little bit higher, you want to be able to take into account this area. So 74.20, just still an 80 pip drop, 100 pip drop, sorry, from the 20 level, or obviously 73.50, 73.30, somewhere around that region. So plenty to keep an eye on, plenty to look at this morning. It's just a case of waiting things out, seeing what happens, how things progress. But I hope everyone has a decent day, whatever you're up to. Just be sensible, be safe. Fundamental wise, there's not as if there's loads and loads to be too mindful of today. In truth, it comes later on in the day. We've got New Zealand unemployment rate, so I would quite like to be risk-free in either New Zealand yen or pound New Zealand by the time that comes around at the depths of tonight. Apart from that, obviously we've got Euro GDP that comes out this morning, so relatively content to see how that progresses. Just see if we've seen any quick. You can see that last ditch momentum push. I would hazard a guess that I'm pretty sure I've just seen it flash up that the GDP for Italy was as expected. If you can get that at 10 o'clock as well, then that would obviously be a big bonus and a big positive for the euro. So yeah, I hope everyone has a decent day. I hope whatever it is that you're up to or you're doing goes well, and I will catch up with people later on. But yeah, have a good day, boys and girls.